people, if they've just bought from you or you've just closed them, it means that you've gained their trust. You talk about this a lot, Sam, and you can lean on that as just the reason people should give you some referrals. It's like, at the end of each presentation, without fail, because I knew I was going to be timid about it, I memorized word for word how my referral script sounded. So I could just regurgitate it and then, let the customer respond. And I think a lot of people think they have to give incentives for referrals. You can, but just a simple approach as like, hey, the number one way, that I get business in my job is through referrals. So-and-so was nice enough to refer me to so-and-so else on your block. Who else in the family might be able to, sit down with me or just listen. They don't have to be someone to be willing to buy, but just someone who'll be nice enough to help me out. Right. And if they trust you, they'll be able to send you some people your way. Now, so it's a little bit easier when you're in the home and something like a closer conversation. But just asking them to do it just to help you out, make sure you qualify. They don't have to be necessarily someone you think would good, just someone who will listen.
What's up, everybody? This is Sam Taggart with the D2D podcast, and we have another awesome episode with one of our vendors, Zero, today. And if you missed D2D Con, these guys had a big booth there. They were awesome, kind of turning heads. And I've done a podcast with Joe, about a year ago? How long ago was that? That was a minute ago. And it's fun to get with young entrepreneurs that have tech. And I know you're out there knocking doors, so this is going to be like, okay, why is this applicable to me? But hear me out. This is he runs a company called Zero, which is an AI voice analytic, text analytic kind of AI tech coaching platform that helps you better understand how to help your salespeople where they're making mistakes, where they can improve, and give real-time actual feedback on what they're doing. It's taking role plays, but to the extreme of like actual plays. And it's game film. It's what's the game film to everybody selling, right? So how do we? I guess, Joe, before we dive in, thanks for coming out to DDCon, and thank you for being somebody that's been a supporter. And it's been fun to watch you guys grow. They've doubled their revenue, and then they doubled again, and I just love seeing the guys win. Like, I run a couple of tech companies, Vanilla, Recruitomatic, and it's, guys, the tech space is a lot harder than people think. Like, you have development costs, you have so low reoccurring to somehow fund, it's its own thing. And yeah, I just want to hear kind of how's the journey been over the last, since we've talked, what have been some big highlights, some big wins for you as a tech entrepreneur? What is the roller coaster, the wins, the losses over the last year?
Yeah, great question. So it's been an absolutely crazy year for us. I would say the biggest win for us overall this year was coming out of a couple of private betas and partnerships with companies like Ion Solar, Encore Solar, and Vivint Inc., with a product that really sells and really impacts people. We worked really hard to get those partnerships set up. The last time I was here on the podcast, we had a wait list. By the time we started selling and taking people off the wait list, we had over 100 companies on it with, I think, over 5,000 or 6,000 sales reps. I'm just waiting to get on Zero that we started hitting up a few months ago. And sales has been awesome. Like 93% of the people who are trying Zero are buying it, and we're getting awesome testimonials. People are raving about it. We have the highest rating on the App Store of any app in the space for door-to-door period right now. So that's been probably the biggest wins. As far as the things that were really hard, honestly, I would say the hardest thing this year was recruiting. like getting the right people in the business to help build the team as an early stage startup. We spent like 3 or 4 months to make our first hire. But at this point, we have an awesome, awesome team. But learning how to recruit for engineers, because I've been trained to recruit for salespeople, right, was a whole new thing for me. And we definitely made some mistakes on some people, but we were able to find an awesome team that we're working with now.
Dude, I could not agree more. And anybody that's seen the behind the curtain of Sam's business can probably attest. It's like I had a conversation yesterday with like, man, I called one of your sales guys and like he's not there anymore. I was like, yeah, to part ways. Like there's people that say they're gonna do stuff, don't do it. There's people that lie, there's people that just can't be good employees. It's like so weird. You're like, dude, find the mission. I'm gonna tell you what to do and do it. And some people just aren't meant to be confined. Some people just don't know how to follow directions. They're not disciplined. They weren't taught hard work. They weren't taught how to, they overpromise, they underdeliver, and it's sad. Like you're just like And once you get though, like, dude, running a business, you find to start getting your core. I remember talking to entrepreneurs like my buddy Graham, and he's like, dude, I have 3 employees, and any fire, I just know which of the 3 employees I send them to. It's like, and I was like, oh, that's a good place to be. He's like, I don't deal with any fires. I just go, which of these 3 people can handle these 3? And then he has 1,000 employees, but he's like, any fire that comes to me, I can just delegate it to one of the 3, and then they'll figure out how to solve it. So I love that. And as you grow, you'll continue to learn. Now you got to have middle level leadership. That's a whole nother growth curve. They're now managing the engineers. You're not managing them. And it's hard. I think any entrepreneur listening to this probably can relate.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the year where we transition from building the product to building the company. I mean, the product is there. Obviously, we're going to continue to make even bigger strides as we add engineers and as AI capabilities accelerate. But now, my product isn't the Zero app. My product is the Zero company and the culture and the processes. So working a lot on the business as opposed to in it.
So you want to know a fun fact? So we got an interview in our Expert Circle Mastermind Q&A with Jordan Peterson after he spoke at Door to Door Con. And I asked him, I was like, dude, you coming out to a door-to-door sales convention. What was your first, what was your intake? He's like, oh man, I'm going to sell a bunch of like who's or, and I was like, what's your take on this? And he goes, I learned my hard lesson of the value of salespeople the hard way. He's like, I thought 10, 20% of the value, because he used to sell, or he still does, these, assessment tests that he had built and the business around take these assessments. And he goes, 80% of our budget needed to go to sales and marketing. And he's like, it's the lubricant. And he goes, I learned real hard the importance of good salespeople, the right marketing, the right sales. And he's like, I thought it was like, he's like, there's so many great products that we never hear about. And he's like, you could have an okay product with great sales that everybody uses. And I think so many people get stuck in this concept of like, well, as long as my product's just an A, I'm going to be in business forever. I'm like, yeah, you'll retain customers and you might get referrals, but you're going to be a slow moving growth machine there. And, there's elements of how do you grow marketing? How do you grow sales? How do you grow product simultaneously without breaking the old product? And I think like so many times, people, once they get into business, they think, I've got this dope idea, I'm gonna make this product. They think like, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. So it's cool that you've seen that transition. I'm right there with Recruitomatic and Vanilla right now. It's like, I've spent so much time building the dang product and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm like, I just need to go get an actual company out of this. So I hired a guy to run each of those, and we'll see them growing. And I'm right there with you, man. Like it's fun to kind of move into a different phase of entrepreneur. So what are some of the new features that you have implemented that have in fact impacted sales teams, customers, or even your team to be like, dang, we nailed it. Like that's the winning feature that everybody seems to be catching on to.
Yeah. So what we found out was that for our hardest demographic before we did these private betas was getting the top reps engaged. The people who are out there killing it, they may not care about getting feedback from their manager, right? And those guys are so critical to have on the platform. to drive engagement with the rest of the reps, right? Sales is monkey see, monkey do. And so we actually created almost like a For You page from TikTok or an Instagram feed just for your company's sales recordings. So when your top rep crushes it, they can put a great caption on it and post it to the trending section, and we'll automatically identify where the hottest moments were in that conversation and let you jump right in at that hottest moment. And so it creates a leaderboard where it will show you who the top trending reps in the company are. And even if the top rep doesn't care about improvement or even helping share their secret sauce with the rest of the team, they can collect views, listens, and comments, get to the top of the leaderboard, and will automatically be able to recommend those recordings to other reps and get them engaged. The second thing that we built on top of that was what we call our answer key, to where right after a conversation, say I run into a new objection or a buying question that I wasn't sure how to handle, I'm sure managers all over are used to getting questions like, hey, I got this, I said this, what did I do wrong?
Yes.
And it's impossible to really help them without knowing what went down. Now, previously in Xero, they might ask for help and you could go give them feedback on just that moment in 1 or 2 minutes. But what's even cooler now is the first line of defense is this answer key, where we'll pick up that moment and show them right underneath from those posted recordings the top examples of how other people in your company have successfully overcome that moment in the past. So I might get, I need to talk to my wife, and right after I can open up Xero in a few seconds and see how the top rep in my company handled it with Mr. and Mrs. Jones last week.
Yes. And that's huge. I call it I've got DDDU with, tens of thousands of use cases. And what's cool is there's like the level 1 playing field. Like, oh, I saw what you recorded, like take Xero, and I'm just going to use it as your example. It's like, cool, you watch videos, you go sell, let's see if you sell well. Yours takes, let's see what you're saying, let's give you feedback, and then let's help you. So level 1, in my opinion, is like as a trainer, right? Is you go in there, you see what he said, and you say, here's some tips and tricks, here's my 2 cents. Level 2 is like, here, watch these other things that maybe are recommended we can diagnose you with. And so I call it the pharmacist. So a good leader. So obviously you guys are using AI to do a lot of this, which is so powerful because it takes a lot of the manual element. I always, when explaining DDDU to people, I'm like, unless the manager or owner really knows all the context of where the medicine sits on the medicine cabinets as a pharmacist, how do they go prescribe to people? You know what I mean? Like, I think of it as like, what are you sick with? What are your symptoms? You can't seem to overcome, or you can't close, or you can't seem to get one-leggers, or your old people you seem to suck at, or whatever that is. And I want to say, okay, diagnose. Hey, here's a bunch of videos on how to sell old people. Here's a bunch of videos on how to sell one-leggers. Here's a bunch of videos on how to better formulate your script on this type of demographic or whatever. And so, where the cool marriage of all this is, a lot of people don't have the top rep at their company. A lot of people don't have the content created yet. And like, when you can know how to diagnose and know what accessible availability of content you can prescribe and or coach with as the coach, this is where Xero becomes real impactful. Like, it's you can role play and everybody's like, oh, I don't do it like that in real life. I'm like, okay, then what do you actually do in real life? Like, it's like real game film. And for those that don't know what Xero is, guys, you knock. So if you knock, you have your recording your script. It'll know when your pitch was, and then it breaks it down and transcribes it, and then it gives you data on where your hot points or it kind of hits key highlights in the script, right? Like, it's kind of like what are the key sections? Am I explaining it in an easy way? Is there a better way? You want to
Sure.
explain
And thank you for bringing that up. I probably should have prefaced with what is Xero in general for people.
Xero is, because not everybody knows what this is. So let's rewind for a second. Explain it in a nutshell, like in a 1-minute version. What is this app that you've created? And then we're going to talk about better training techniques. We're going to talk about how to use just methods of infield, hidden camera, hidden recording, hidden scripts, to in class, to feedback as a coach if you're a manager or you're an owner and you're trying to improve your sales team.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Sure. The one-liner is Ciro's the game film for sales. What that means is we're going to record those conversations. For door knockers, it's really annoying if you've ever used something like voice memos to start and stop in between doors. With Ciro, it's just one tap. It will record in the background while you're knocking your doors and then create separate recordings for each of your conversations for you automatically. Then what are we going to do with that audio? Well, we're going to transcribe it and analyze it to bring out data like, are you talking too fast? Are you word vomiting? Are you asking enough questions? Are you getting engagement? But even more important than the black and white numbers is to give you some color and give some music to the lyrics. And what that means is, for a manager, we're automatically going to identify the most coachable moments from your sales team's day every day and send it to you at a time you request. And we're going to look for those near misses. Where did the customer give you some buying questions or show some interest, but the rep just couldn't quite close it? And when you open up the,
what happened? How'd you talk to him for 10 minutes and you didn't seem to transition? Why would you talk to him for 10? You know what I mean? Like, love that.
Exactly. And, as a manager, I'm going to get 2 or 3 of these recommendations. Like, it's high value stuff, but I don't want to spend 30 minutes listening to 3 recordings that are each 10 minutes long. So what we'll do is we'll actually identify the most important moments for you to jump in. So if I'm looking at a conversation, I can find where the pitch started, where the pushback started, and jump in at that moment, give some quick feedback and jump back out. And typically managers are just doing this on the way home from being in the field. You can literally do it all hands-free right from your phone in the car. And what you're going to start to do is pick up on themes by listening to 2 or 3 of these moments each day about what's going on with your team. So to your point, Sam, you can actually tailor the training and the correlation meeting the next day. Until you've actually listened to the audio, you really have no idea what's going on in those sales conversations. You're going to be shocked at some of the simple mistakes you're hearing people make. And you're going to be saying things to yourself like, oh my God, no wonder this guy isn't getting the results, number one. And number two, like, how is this guy getting any results when he's saying this? He could be so much better. And then as a sales rep, for each of those key moments that we identify, we'll show you how the top reps in the company have handled them automatically. And so you can find someone who matches your style and begin to emulate them. Because I know for a lot of people, their style may not match their sales trainers. Something that works for you, Sam, may not work for me. We talked about this last time. And so that's it in a nutshell. The other cool thing we do to save you guys time is we integrate with Spodio and Sales Rabbit currently. And how the integration works is we'll attach the Ciro recording to your pin in Sales Rabbit or Spodio. So if you need to refer back for a go back, maybe you don't have time to take notes, you can see the entire conversation. And especially in solar, where you have a different person oftentimes going out to close the appointment from the person who said it, the closer can come in and just find the recording of the set. And some of the closers who are using this tell us their close rates went from like 40% to 60%, 70% in some cases. For certain types of clients. Now, we haven't done the full case study, but that's been a huge impact there as well.
Yeah, because it's like, if you can sing the same song as the setter, because like some setters will go out and be like, hey, I just need to make $50. Can you please just set the appointment so that I can make my $50? And like, but then they're saying their fun script. And it's like, dude, like you could say, okay, this setter sucks. What an idiot. Or I could go in as a closer and be like, he's using the stupid like sympathy set. So I'd be like, hey, did the setter say he make his $50? Let's make sure he gets his $50. Let's sit down real quick and make, you know what I mean? I could play on his song. I'm like, okay, let's play on the song. Like, hey, I'll be in and out of your hair. I have to sit down with you for 10 minutes at minimum for him to get his $50. Can I sit down with you for 10 minutes? He gets his $50 and kick me out of here. Oh yeah, I could do that. Cool. I know as a sales guy, I got 10 minutes. I'll sell you one, giving me another 45 minutes and I'll sell that. But if I don't know that's the song the setter's been singing and he's over here scared to admit the fact that he's being an idiot and just saying, I want to make my $50, then you see what I mean? His ego is going to be like, oh no, I said the script, like, and you're wondering why your no-show ratio is so high. So you sit down, you're like, why is my no-show ratio so high with these 3 setters? I don't even want to go to their appointments anymore because it's a 70% no-show. I'll be like, hold on, let me look at what he said in the last 5. And be like, dude, you didn't confirm any of the appointment. You just got his name. Like, that's not an appointment. You're the one that made up the effing 6 o'clock appointment time. But there was never said 6 o'clock in your effing script. I'm looking for 6 o'clock, and it doesn't even say 6 o'clock. So when the frick why would you send me to 6 o'clock? Because no wonder he's not here. Like, the element of efficiency and then the element of the element of liability too. Because here's the thing, like I think that people in sales are at risk. Okay. And for three reasons. Let's take NEM 3.0, for example. What's going to happen if people aren't trained right is they are going to continue saying what they said last year. And when this thing passes, they're going to continue to say the same thing because they weren't really trained. And so they're like, well, I don't know how to say the new stuff. So let's just resort back to the old stuff and hope it works and it'll work itself out. Like, no. That's not how it works. There's a massive change in how the net metering works. And so if my sales guys don't adopt a new sales training, and I start to like research this and say, wait a minute, guys, you can't say what you used to say. The numbers aren't the same. Then it's like a liability. Like they're calling you in 6 months being like, what the fuck, dude? I still have a power bill of XYZ, or oh, what the fetch? I didn't get this. And I think too many people don't think, like, maybe untrained or just turned an eye is going to work for them. But I'm like, guys, when it's a massive liability, when it comes to 3.0, it can be detrimental to solar industry as a whole.
Yeah.
That could all the salespeople or roofers as a whole, or, according to AOBs in Florida, like there's elements of this that is, if we can all adopt, like we need to keep an eye on our salespeople. And that's why we get the black eyes and punched in the face by the media and customers sometimes, is it's just a bad apple that maybe wasn't even trained right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if how many people in the solar industry are aware of this, but if anyone's heard the story, with Pink recently, you had journalists going out and doing sting operations where they were literally booking meetings with salespeople just to catch them lying. And oftentimes you read that, and it's not necessarily that the sales rep was lying, although I'm sure there were some that knew the truth and misrepresented it, but I'm sure a lot of them were just trained improperly. Especially with new sales reps, like you have to really be careful about how you're managing their brand. And solar's under a microscope now. And the model of let's just put them through a quick training, have them shadow for 2 hours and send them out into the field, and they'll either succeed or they'll fail. And if they fail, there's someone else like that we can recruit to put them back into place. That model is now getting increasingly risky. So with Zero, the cool thing is, you don't even have to go check those last 5 appointments and listen to the audio to find out if they're following the script. You can just see by picking up the moments, whether they're confirming the appointment, whether they're explaining, this part of it correctly. And to your point, when there are those conflicts, customer says, hey, he promised me this or he promised me that, more often than not, like the customer is actually the one who's misremembering or making up. And you can go ahead and Zero and find the address, just search in the address or search in the verbiage, and it'll return the recording. And we recently had a case with one of our customers where basically this case got up in one of the state judicial systems, and they were able to find the recording, figure out that the customer was lying, export that from Zero, and get the case thrown out. A lot of people in sales, their initial reaction is to be nervous about being recorded, but the recording is actually your shield. That's what protects you.
100%. Media and customers are going to pick and choose what they want to hear versus, wait a minute, you took one soundbite of what I said, but you didn't take it in context to what it actually was. And people need to remember that. So shifting gears, and last little thing I'll say on that. Why do we require every company? We have over 300 companies that use our online training platform, is because it puts a shield for the company to have an excuse of saying, we put our guys through some compliance training that are on Door-to-Door University or on our own training, like we white label it for you and call it ABC Roofing University or whatever, because of this very moment where you can say, we had him go through this and we're doing the best measure possible to ensure that he was trained the right way. But if you don't have anything like that, and you're like, he shadowed for a day, we threw him out in the wolves, and he just was making up bullshit because he's a bullshitter, then you're an idiot. Like if you're a company and you don't have DDDU or some kind of training modules at the beginning that forces them to watch, test, quiz, then we're missing the onboarding system that should, and reach out to us and then couple that with Zero and say, are they following the scripts that we've put in place? Because it's like, Cutco. My very first job, I did Quick Chopper 2000s where I was selling this thing, and I was in Kmart's and Gottschalk's, and the guy came up to me and was shadowing because I went 2 weeks and I didn't get a sale. And he was like, and I asked him, I was like, my manager, I'm like 18 or 17 in Kmart's doing these presentations, selling these things. And I was like, why do I suck? And he's like, because you didn't memorize the script. I was like, I hate memorizing shit. He's like, because you're way off script. And it was 2 weeks of me winging it, being off script. Then I had him come watch, because that's easy when there's a crowd of people. I was selling to like a group sell. And he was like, you're so far off script. No one will know what he's buying. And we built the script psychologically. So the reason why we built the script. And if you don't have the good scripts, that's why DDU is nice. But if you do have the right scripts, I love your recommended follow these people, and just do what they do. Say how they say, pause when they pause, use the tone when they tone, and so that you can actually duplicate. And I think biggest problem in this industry is the power of duplication. So utilizing software, utilizing training is, in a simplest form, and holding your people accountable to the training. I literally have a sales meeting 2 days ago. A guy's been with me for 3 weeks. I pulled up DDU and I said, hey man, have you watched the videos? I pulled up his report and he was like, shoot, he had one video watched. And I was like, okay, stop bitching why your sales aren't going through. I'm literally a training company and you haven't done the training of our own training that we built for you. And he was like, oh, and he's a naturally good sales guy, sharp. He should crush. Guess what? Today he closed 3 deals. He had his biggest sales day, and I'm at the office today, and it was just cool to see the difference of, like, when people take training serious, how fast of a result we can see shift.
Yeah. Yeah. People who've really started digging into the content on Zero, like our managers will tell them they don't even have to look at the listening stats to know who's listening, because they just see it in the numbers. See people say like, yeah, my sales basically doubled overnight, or, and it's amazing. I had the same thing as in my experience. Like, I don't like listening to myself transparently. Like, I'll mostly ask my co-founder for feedback or listen to him so I can learn. A lot of people are the same way. Some people are more conscientious than I am, and they'll listen to themselves and they'll get even more value. But when I was doing sales for Cutco, where I got started, my average order doubled overnight, because I listened to one of the top reps who I found matched my style, by the way, which is a major point that I want to emphasize again. And I was able to win a trip because I was able to double my average order. I didn't have the time to do the appointments with my normal numbers that I would need in order to win that trip. I just had to find a way, and that's the way I found. And I think a lot of people, um, are struggle to get their reps to sometimes listen to the training content. And I think there are all sorts of ways that you can make sure that it happens. But with Zero, we try and make it a little bit easier, because people are already wondering what the top reps are doing. That's putting them at the top of the leaderboards. They're seeing them up there all the time. And there's this curiosity that these sales reps can now finally satiate, because that top rep just posted a recording that they closed with a fun caption. Like he said, there's no way my wife's going to go for this, closed for next week. And I can open up and actually hear it. And so you'll start to see reps really absorbing these best practices and duplicating your top people, just because they're curious and it's a little bit social.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. I love that. Dude, and it's so brilliant what you created. And I think it's, for sophisticated companies that actually know how to, like, there's the small little rinky-dink companies that I'm like, dude, you still need to figure out how to pay your people right. Then it'd be like, okay, now let's get your people trained right. Like, there's
Right.
levels, right? Like, and I've watched that within my own company. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, some of your clients are like Vivint and these big ones, because they already have departments that can help integrate and help this. And I think one of the biggest problems we get with tech is, and I've had to learn this the hard way, is you sign up for a software and you maybe use 10%. Like, I was at Sales Rabbit headquarters yesterday. I met with Spotty today, talking to you before this call. There's so many apps and processes. And as an entrepreneur, what are some things that you can do to implement new softwares, new systems, new processes, and get people to buy in to new things? And what have you seen as some best practices there?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite questions, because this is something that Cutco was actually really, really good at. And so I have some good learnings from there. The first thing I would say is before you're even going to launch the software, you want to understand what the workflow looks like for the sales rep. How does it play with all of the other softwares that we're bringing on? And what does it look like for the sales rep to use this in the day to day on the ground? Because if you don't understand it, there's no possible way that you can ask your sales reps to use it, or let alone train them on it. So that's number one. Have a deep understanding and make sure it plays well with everything else. After that, for your ongoing people, you want to launch it at a team meeting where you're going to get as much attendance as possible. You can't just throw an invite link in a group chat and say, here, watch these training videos and get on it. Those videos are never going to get watched. Take an existing meeting where you're going to have great attendance and get everyone on it. Then walk them through signing up the app and make sure they have it downloaded and they're signed in by the time you're leaving that meeting.
Don't be like, here's the thing, good luck, go sign up later and use it. It's like, everyone pull out your phone, download the app. Here's your login. I love this. Good step. Keep going.
Exactly. And this is actually what we do with Xero. Each time we game plan a launch, my last question at the end is like, okay, when's your next team meeting? And we're going to book it during that team meeting, and your reps are going to have it downloaded, and we'll have done a practice recording on their phone by the time they're leaving. It's also important, like people have short attention spans. You want to train them on it, but also walk them through doing a test or something before they leave the meeting. Now, as far as getting people started, there's a bunch of inertia, right? There's this saying that rockets use 90% of their fuel at takeoff. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get off the ground, but once you have the habit built, that's when it'll be automatic. So in getting it off the ground, people ask me, one of the managers at Vital asked me the other day, what incentives should I run for Xero? And the answer is, you actually don't run incentives for Xero. You tie, or for insert software, you tie all of the existing incentives to the usage of the software. So as opposed to changing it from, whoever gets 3 sales gets Y to whoever gets 3, it's like whoever gets 3 sales that are recorded in Xero, or that are dropped in the canvassing app, or that are put through the new proposal tool. It's like, if it's not using the new software, it doesn't count. In order to even participate, you have to use the software. And then I think a lot of people think that because their sales reps are 1099s, like they can't really mandate things. They just say, hey, if you use it, this is what it looks like. They might use it as a reward in some cases. You can absolutely make it an expectation that people use the software, and you should. At the end of the day, like, you're investing your time to train them, you're investing your money to get them on the software. It is perfectly valid to require that they use it. The only thing you want to make sure when you're mandating the software is that you build the value. Explain exactly why you saw the value in a way that they'll understand. And then the last thing I'll say, that's all for getting your existing reps on it. For getting new reps on it, make sure that it's a part of the training and that they're walked through exactly how to use it in your existing LMS or in your training. And when you're going out and shadowing them for the first time, like when they're out there in the field, you're walking them through how to use it. So to summarize, it's like, number one, understand exactly how it will work. Number two, get your reps on it at a team meeting, tie all the incentives to it, and make it an expectation. And then number three, make sure it's a part of the training process for new reps.
Yes, love that. Guys, fire. And it's for anything, whether it's like even like GroupMe or Slack, like how do you get your people using that, consistently posting their sales numbers, or a Turfy an area, whether it's Sales Rabbit, whether it's Xero, whether it's DDDU, like that same process and formula. Like I tell people, I'm like, tie people's commission check to their accountability to this. It's like, hey, unless you have this many things, you're not going to get paid, so might as well do it. Like I've done things where it's like, yeah, like part of the agreement to work here is follow this system. And I started being like, yeah, if it's not in the system, then you don't get paid on it. Like if your deal isn't recorded, then you get dinged. Or it's like, we need to show that for compliance, so therefore we need it. Like you could even tie pay, you could tie scores and incentives, you could tie, make sure the onboarding process, like you said, 90% of the heavy lifting is at the beginning. But guys, like teaching good habits and getting people in good patterns of using good systems is in result of that, you'll see increased performance. And I think a good leaders, it's almost like the difference between leading and managing. Leaders are inspiring and leading from the front and rah, and they're so motivating. Managers are the ones that are checking reports. They're making sure that people are usage. They're the ones sitting down for 20 minutes looking through scripts. And I think the balance between leading and managing is so important, and they're different. And some people have a really good manager skill set. Like they're kind of behind the curtain. They're kind of like sitting there. They're organized. They're divvying out area. They're very good at looking at reports, doing the one-on-ones. And then some of the best leaders make terrible managers because they're like, yeah, let's get it. And their follow through sucks. Their accountability sucks. The attention to detail sucks. So supplement where you're lacking, or realize your risks and inefficiencies as an owner or leader or manager, and find ways to counterbalance that. Because I think people downplay the importance of manager, which is checking the usage, checking the login ratio, checking the numbers, checking the accountability. Like those elements, as an entrepreneur or sales manager, is pertinent to your success. Hence why your title typically says sales manager, with an expectation of having leadership skills. Anyway, so I thought that was kind of an interesting correlation to the usage of tech and just other systems and processes. It might not even be tech. It might just be turn this in, then update this, then do this, then do this. It's a 4-step thing we do every time, whatever that is. And half the time skip through steps 1 and 3 and then forget 2, and then it breaks the production pipeline, or it makes it 2 weeks longer to get an install, or whatever that looks like. No one shows up to your set because it's like, dude, you didn't put in the data, you put in the right stuff, like you didn't follow the process. So wrapping up, I guess one final question that I think would be really pertinent to the audience was, you come from a Cutco background and obviously your sales background where you were heavy in the referral game.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people don't realize the power of referrals and door to door, because they're like, oh, I'll just go knock another door. You didn't have another door to knock. You had to get another referral. So what feedback could you give with, one, you've been studying analytics and tech, but 2, your background in sales, to help increase referrals in our business?
Yeah. My number one tip is going to be pretty simple, which is to ask for referrals. The biggest reason people don't get them is obviously that they don't ask for them. And I think the reason is, after you've made a sale with someone, or right after you've convinced them to sign up for the pest control system or a huge solar deal, you almost feel a little bit tentative, or timid rather, about asking them for more. But what you'll find is, after you get through it the first few times, it feels natural. And people, if they've just bought from you or you've just closed them, it means that you've gained their trust. You talk about this a lot, Sam, and you can lean on that as just the reason people should give you some referrals. It's like, at the end of each presentation, without fail, because I knew I was going to be timid about it, I memorized word for word how my referral script sounded, so I could just regurgitate it and then let the customer respond. And I think a lot of people think they have to give incentives for referrals. You can, but just a simple approach is like, hey, the number one way that I get business in my job is through referrals. So and so was nice enough to refer me to so and so else on your block. Who else in the family might be able to sit down with me or just listen. They don't have to be someone who'd be willing to buy, but just someone who'd be nice enough to help me out, right? And if they trust you, they'll be able to send you some people your way. Now, so it's a little bit easier when you're in the home and something like a close or a conversation. But just asking them to do it just to help you out, make sure you qualify. They don't have to be necessarily someone you think would good, just someone who will listen, because that's going to narrow down their scope. They didn't even think they needed pest control or solar or home security, so they're not going to think any of their friends need it. Just someone who's nice enough to be willing to talk. And besides the way that you're asking, the only other thing I would say is plant the seed earlier in the conversation. Mention someone who referred you somewhere else.
And so in Zero, what's cool is you could say, find the words refer or referral, or, and you're like, dude, referral never, or refer never once came up into your process. Like, of course you're not getting referrals. Let's increase, and just, I need you to say the word refer 4 times in your script. See if they said it 4 times. If they said it 4 times, let's see the increase of referral numbers. Those kind of things are fun to play with. Like, sales can be fun. Sales can be a science. Sales can be duplicated. Sales can scale. I think people think, like, when golden door guys sell 10 times more than the average guys. That's how I came up with the number. I'm like, what's the average guy sell? And can I 10x that by one person? Meaning one dude sells the average of 10 people combined. Them versus 10. And the average alarm guy does 40. 400 is the golden door. The average pest guy does 150. 1,000 is the, what I mean? It's just, I think people don't realize, like, by sharpening your saw, like, there's a 10x number you can get to. And that's what we've been trying to set out to duplicate. Is there's no limitation. There's an 80-20 rule. The question is, what is the 20% doing, and how do we increase the 20%, and grow that class of experts? Well, we're about out of time. So, guys, if you want more information, you can go to Siro.ai. Check them out. I'd highly go follow Joe. And, if you guys have more questions on how their app works and things like that, go check it out. It's cool that they've got good integrations. They couple well with a lot of the good tech platforms that your companies just should have, from training to, knocking app to CRM, things like that. Well, Joe, appreciate you being on the show, my man. And we will be in touch this year and see what else develops, man.
Yeah, Sam, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Guys, good luck out there.